Good morning, televiewers of Media Prime Television. Thank you so much for joining us once again on this other edition of The Brief live on My Media Prime Television, a program where we always get to dig several layers beneath the major headlines as captured by newspapers. On today's edition of the program, some of the newspapers are focusing on the information regarding the number of persons who died in 2022 in road accidents across the national territory. We are told that the Ministry of Transports of the country has written to some media houses that published fake information regarding the number of persons who died in 2022 across the national territory as a result of road accidents. We shall equally talk about President Paul Biya that has prioritized the reconstruction of the extreme north of the country. President Paul Biya, during his State of the Nation's address, talked about the reconstruction of the far north region of the country hit by insecurity and conflict. We shall dwell on some of those headlines this morning as captured by newspapers. Gwladys Bomotonguina is here. Let's have the headlines in the French language newspapers. Bonjour Gwladys.
Bonjour Lasha. Bonjour à vous fidèles téléspectateurs de My Media Prime Télévision. C'est l'heure de Deux Briefs, votre émission bilingue de revue de presse. Pour votre information ce matin, mesdames, messieurs, nous débutons avec le journal Le Reporter Hebdo. Le journal Le Reporter Hebdo nous parle en grand titre de la visite du MINDEF à l'Est Cameroun. Le journal l'intitule ce matin une visite pratique républicaine honorée. C'est du moins le grand titre paru ce matin par Le Reporter Hebdo. Le journal nous révèle que la traditionnelle visite de travail du ministre délégué à la présidence en charge de la défense, Joseph Betty à Somon, dans la région du Soleil Levant, la région de l'Est Cameroun, fait donc partie des pratiques et coutumes déjà établies au sein de la hiérarchie militaire camerounaise. Les détails sont donc en page 3 jusqu'à 4 du Reporter Hebdo ce matin. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous poursuivons avec la voix des décideurs. La voix des décideurs ce matin nous parle en grand titre de conquête spéciale pour parler ici du chef de l'État, son Excellence Paul Biya. Le journal intitule en grand titre l'appel de Biya aux grandes puissances, plaidant donc en faveur de la création d'un marché africain des capitaux. Le chef d'État camerounais en visite de travail aux États-Unis à l'occasion du sommet des leaders États-Unis-Afrique a donc exprimé son intérêt pour le spatial. Les détails sont donc en page 7 du code du journal La Voix des décideurs ce matin. En page 5, le journal parle toujours au Cameroun du projet satellitaire qui est donc appelé CamSpace. Ce projet est porté disparu, c'est du moins l'information parue ce matin par La Voix des décideurs à sa page 5. Le journal nous explique ce matin que l'incompétence et l'inertie de Minette Libom Lilikeng et de Paul Avomo Asumu sont donc pointés du doigt. Une enquête est donc établie dans ce journal La Voix des décideurs à sa page 5. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous continuons avec Nsungkikang ce matin. Nsungkikang nous parle en grand titre de fortune publique, les prédateurs voués donc à l'enfer. Dans son adresse à la nation le 31 décembre 2022, le président de la République, son Excellence Paul Biya, s'est voulu donc menaçant contre tous ceux qui attentent à la fortune publique. Les détails sont donc en page 5 des Nsungkikang ce matin. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous continuons avec le journal Le Jour. Le journal Le Jour ce matin parle de la hausse des prix, timbre fiscal, les usagers sous le choc, effectif donc depuis le 1er janvier 2023. Le nouveau tarif de cette marque officielle suscite donc des déboires auprès des citoyens qui sont contraints de s'y plier. Les détails sont en page 3 du journal bleu d'Amanmana ce matin. En page 5, le journal nous parle d'électricité, pas d'augmentation de prix pour les ménages. Nous restons toujours dans le journal Le Jour à sa page 7. Le journal nous amène au lycée bilingue de Bafoussam. Le journal nous révèle ce matin qu'une centaine d'élèves donc sont exclus du lycée bilingue de Bafoussam pour indiscipline. Nous clôturons ce matin avec l'essentiel. L'essentiel nous amène dans les universités d'État au Cameroun pour parler en grand titre des droits universitaires. Le journal nous révèle ce matin que les droits universitaires sont inchangés et restent donc toujours à 50 000 francs CFA. Les détails sont en page 7 de l'essentiel ce matin. Mesdames, Messieurs, voilà pour vos titres ce matin en langue française. Place à la découverte des titres parus en langue anglaise. Et c'est avec toi, Lasha.
Thank you, Gwladys Bomotonguina. Thank you to televiewers of My Media Prime for staying with us. Let's kickstart this morning with the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune. Cameroon Tribune newspaper this morning is interested in the head of state's address to the nation on the 31st of December 2022. President Paul Biya remembered the extreme north of the country when it comes to reconstruction. And President Paul Biya, during his State of the Nation's address, like I earlier mentioned, on the 31st of December, talked about the urgency for the reconstruction of the far north region of the country in the domains of socio-economic infrastructure that will revamp the region that has been hit by insecurity and conflict for a very long time. Get full details on page 2 of this edition of the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune, talking about the reconstruction of the far north region of the country, the region that has been hit by conflict and, of course, insecurity. State companies, establishments, new classification unveiled, we are told, by the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune that Finance Minister signed 2 decisions on January 3, 2023, giving the new classification based on the business turnover and budgets of the structures within the past 3 years. Cameroon, according to the paper, at moment counts 36 states, companies and 74 establishments spread across 5 categories. Get full details on pages 34 and 35 of this edition of the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune. And Cameroon Tribune is also interested in this crime that has to do with a Spanish businessman that has been duped by his girlfriend in the country. The Spanish businessman that met a female Cameroonian online, and they were planning to invest in the agricultural sector in the country, a project that was estimated at estimated to the tune of 47.8 million francs CFA, and the lady disappeared with the money, according to what the newspaper is telling us in Douala. The Spanish expert or the Spanish businessman who came to Cameroon for that business. Get full details in this edition of the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune. Cameroon Tribune is also interested in education of visually impaired persons in the country. Schools increasingly lining, and stakeholders made the observation yesterday, January 4, 2023, during commemorative activities to mark World Day for Braille. Different schools are proposing varied facilities for the persons, ranging from free education to the provision of learning materials to those people or persons living with disabilities. Get full details on pages 36 and 37 of this edition of the National Bilingual Daily Cameroon Tribune. On to Lojou. Lojou is focusing on the shock that Cameroonians are living since the 1st of January 2023. We are told that Cameroonians have to face the reality by purchasing physical stamp now for 1,500 francs compared to what used to be in the past. That's 1,000 francs. Most of them did not know. They were shocked as of 1st of January 2023 as they went about their daily activities across the national territory. Get full details on the shock that most Cameroonians or citizens are going through this year 2023 when it comes to purchasing physical stamp for their important documents. And of course, electricity bills has not increased for households, writes Lojou newspaper, contrary to information that electricity bills has increased for households in the country. The normal units for household has remained the same or cost per kilowatt has remained the same, according to Le Jour newspaper. We end this morning with Le Quotidien Réalité Plus. Réalité Plus is focusing on the end-of-year festivities in the country 2022. And of course, credit is being given to the General Delegate for National Security, Martin Barngangeli. According to Le Quotidien Réalité Plus, there was fluid or traffic in the country was okay, and no accident or major accidents were recorded during the festive periods in the country, all thanks to police officers who did their work on major highways in the country. Full details in this edition of Le Quotidien Réalité Plus newspaper. Thank you so much, televiewers of My Media Prime, for watching. We are back in the studio to continue with our discussions. Etape Christain is joining us this morning. Good morning, Etape, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Bonjour à nos millions de téléspectateurs et bonjour à ceux qui nous suivent de près ou de loin en ce moment.
And equally, Elvis Mbane, who is the National Communications Secretary to the Popular Action Party, is equally joining us this morning on the line to the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. Elvis, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Lasha. Good morning to my co-panelists and, of course, to Gwladys, who is there with you in the studio. Good morning to all viewers of My Media.
Thank you, Elvis, for joining us once again. Let's start with the price of physical stamp that has increased in the country. We're equally getting information that school or fees that are paid at the level of the university, contrary to some information that media houses relate, remained the same, as well as electricity bills for households. What do you have to say to this new development? Cameroonians received the news of physical stamp as a shock, as most of them did not believe that they will be purchasing physical stamp that used to cost 1,000 francs for 1,500 francs.
Well, let me begin with the university fees. Well, we must admit that university studies in Cameroon were at a state level are quite cheap at 50,000 francs, that we cannot deny it. But my concern is not the fact that it is 50,000 francs. My concern is that the state of Cameroon, the regime, should be able to review the educational system so that even when we pay as cheap as 50,000 francs, we should be able to get a quality education that can get us gainfully employed at the end of the day when we graduate from there. That is the focus of the PAP, and not just the fact that we pay 50,000 francs. Now, coming back to the issue of the physical stamps, Mr. Lasha, I am rather shocked to hear that Cameroonians are shocked to know that the physical stamp has moved from 1,000 francs to 1,005. I think that this was long delayed already since the early December of last year. But you know, we are dealing with a population, a people who have accepted their faith and would rather prefer to die in silence than actually stand up to tell the regime in place that they are fed up with some of the decisions that are taken. Cameroonians cannot pretend today to tell the world that they are shocked to discover that
most of them are under shock. They're under the shock. Elvis, the shock I'm talking about, the shock of paying the 1,500 francs. Not that they are shocked, but they are under the shock of paying the 1,500 francs.
No, that is what we are saying. I'm saying the same thing, Mr. Lasha. It should not be a shock to any Cameroonian, because before going to discover it since January 1st that it is now 1,500, it had been relayed. It was debated at the National Assembly, and the media made it known to Cameroonians in advance that they were going to pass a bill where the stamps will evolve to 1,500. But Cameroonians stayed mute. Nobody reacted. And now that it has
what do you think they would have done?
The law,
what do you think?
To be shocked. It's not a shock. The truth is that we have often been.
What do you think they would have done? They would have done to reverse the situation. Their representatives were at the level of parliament. You wanted Cameroonians to go to parliament too, or move to the streets?
No. Thank you. The very first thing is that we don't have parliamentarians in Cameroon. We don't have the people's representatives at the national assembly.
No, how can you say we don't have parliamentarians?
Ce sont dans les qui? Les gens qui prennent ces lois, qui votent ces lois.
Pardon?
Les gens qui votent dans ces lois au Parlement, ce sont les qui? Puisque vous dites que nous n'avons pas de parlementaires au Cameroun.
Non, ce sont juste des individus qui sont là pour sauvegarder leur intérêt, mais pas l'intérêt du peuple camerounais. Parce qu'on ne peut pas expliquer qu'avec la vie qui est déjà aussi chère au Cameroun, que les représentants du peuple aillent à l'Assemblée et votent tel genre de loi. Passant, par exemple, de 1 000 francs en 1500, on comprend effectivement que l'État dépend des impôts pour pouvoir gérer ou bien disons que le système en place dépend des impôts pour pouvoir évoluer dans certains projets. Mais passer de 1000 francs à 1500 et que les parlementaires votent ce genre de loi sans se poser des questions, je dis non. Parce qu'il y a d'autres moyens qu'on pouvait appliquer pour pouvoir générer de l'argent pour l'État, mais pas forcément à travers les impôts, sachant que ça va toucher directement la vie du Camerounais.
Quelles sont ces autres méthodes qui peuvent être exploitées pour que le gouvernement camerounais ait cet argent pour réaliser ces projets?
D'accord. Il y a par exemple ce que je vais appeler en anglais un broad-based tax system. Ça veut dire quoi tout simplement? Ça veut dire que l'État pouvait au contraire réduire des taxes aux Camerounais, permettant aux citoyens de créer beaucoup plus d'entreprises. Si on a 1000 entreprises et que l'État donne la possibilité d'avoir 2000, 3000 entreprises aux Camerounais, ça permet à l'État d'avoir un peu plus d'argent parce que avec 2000, 3000, 4000 entreprises, ces gens-là vont payer des impôts qui ne seront pas aussi exorbitants, mais ça va permettre à l'État de gagner un peu plus. Donc,
Elvis, there are other sources of revenue for the government, not only taxation. We have other sources of revenue, custom duties, natural resources, aids, international aids, and so many other sources of revenue. Why should the government only depend on taxation? Why should the government not explore other sources of revenue that we have?
That is what we are declaring, Mr. Lasha. You have mentioned that there are other sources which we all recognize, but the problem here is that we have a government that does not have a project for the people, the government that lacks a vision, and a government that at the end of the day only goes on what we can call poor implementation of facts and reality on the ground. We have natural resources. What are they doing with our natural resources? That is the question. And when you even talk about foreign aid, I would not even want us to go to the level of foreign aid, because we know that the foreign aid that we get in this country, again, ends up in the pockets of private individuals, and the common man pays the price at the end of the day. So foreign aid to me is not even something to think about. But coming back to our country, I say we could go for a broad-based tax system where taxes are reduced. Thousands of Cameroonian great companies, and now they will rather pay taxes at a reduced rate that will permit the government still to be able to generate income. Secondly, government could even, by the time they are raising their incomes, try to create companies and create avenues for Cameroonians to get themselves gainfully employed. You cannot just be taxing people who don't have even the base minimum to be able to feed themselves with. Those are the situations we are decrying.
In whose interest? In whose interest?
Every indication are not interested in the lifestyle of the people they claim to represent. They are representing the obese TPDM that they have at the National Assembly and not the common man.
Elvis, in whose interest are these taxes being imposed? These people who want these taxes to be high, in whose interest are they doing so?
Well, I will simply answer by saying that it is in the best interest of the regime in place, because we know that even after paying or buying the stamps at 1.5 and the other stamps have increased, they will at the end of the day embezzle the money. It is to the best interest of the regime in place and the hooligans who have taken the country hostage. That's a simple truth I can tell you about it.
Qu'est-ce qu'il faudrait faire pour qu'au jour d'aujourd'hui, les Camerounais puissent se sentir à l'aise dans ce pays?
Malheureusement, Gwladys, comme disait un philosophe, chaque peuple mérite son gouvernement. Je pense que les Camerounais méritent leur gouvernement. Même quand les gens viennent se plaindre, ils méritent leur gouvernement parce que les Camerounais n'agissent jamais quand on va dans d'autres pays. Parce qu'il est possible que même le Camerounais lambda se lève pour dire à son gouvernement: nous sommes fatigués de ce genre de style de vie et que nous ne pouvons plus. Vous voyez un peu, mais quand les gens restent tranquilles et ne réagissent pas, les gens se plaignent dans les bars, mais finissent toujours par acheter les timbres à 1500 francs. Sachez qu'un jour ça va passer de 1500 à 2000, l'homme camerounais va toujours acheter. Et voilà pourquoi nous on dit au niveau du PAP, ce qu'on doit faire par exemple, c'est il faut que les Camerounais et surtout la jeunesse s'engagent dans l'affaire politique de son pays et comprennent qu'ils ont ce pouvoir de pouvoir voter hors système. Ce gouvernement qui a pris en otage le pays depuis 40 ans. Malheureusement, les gens ne s'intéressent pas à la politique. Et nous autres, même qui parlons, on nous regarde comme peut-être des extraterrestres. Vous voyez un peu, l'homme camerounais fait semblant de ne pas s'intéresser à la politique de son pays, mais il est victime de tout ce genre de décisions qui sont prises par des personnes qui ne sont là que pour leur intérêt personnel. Malheureusement, c'est ça la situation au pays.
Okay, Elvis, I'll be coming back to Etape Canteen. We are talking about fiscal stamp that has increased, timbre fiscal, passe de 1000 francs à 1500 francs. Les autres coûts.
Et il faut dire que nous sommes dans une situation déplorable. Le gouvernement est en train de prendre les mesures pour élargir l'assiette fiscale dans un contexte marqué par la crise multiforme. D'un côté, on parle du coronavirus qui a eu son impact. On parle de la guerre russo-ukrainienne qui, jusqu'ici, continue à tendre ses tentacules au niveau des effets que cela peut produire, notamment sur le plan alimentaire, que sur le plan vestimentaire. Eh bien, il faut tout simplement dire que les Camerounais ne peuvent pas s'en sortir dans ce genre de situation. Les timbres qui coûtaient par pièce 1000 francs ont augmenté à 1500. D'autres choses, on parlait de l'électricité.
Non, ça c'est pas, il n'y a rien.
Il n'y a rien.
When it comes to
bon,
electricity.
D'accord.
On parle aussi de vignettes, hein, parce qu'il y a
voilà,
des vignettes aussi.
Vignettes has moved up.
De 8 chevaux à 13 chevaux, ça coûte, je crois, 75 000 francs. Si j'ai bonne mémoire. Eh bien, il faut dire que le gouvernement devrait prendre d'autres mesures. Je suis très d'accord avec mon copanéliste qui est à Yaoundé. Lorsqu'il dit ces mesures fiscales qui sont prises par le gouvernement ne sont pas...
Enacted by President Paul Biya. Does it mean that the parliamentarians they don't have the realities of what is happening on the ground?
Justement, ceux qui représentent le peuple à l'Assemblée nationale, on a comme impression que ceux-là ne savent pas leur responsabilité fondamentale.
Mais est-ce que ces parlementaires vivent même le quotidien des populations qu'elles représentent? Justement,
c'est la question qu'on est en droit de se poser parce que là, on voit des décisions qui sont prises sans adéquation avec la réalité du terrain, ce qui continue toujours à appauvrir le citoyen lambda. Peut-être, moi je me dis, peut-être c'est l'obésité des députés du parti au pouvoir à l'Assemblée nationale
qui
domine sur les décisions.
Are they not patriotic?
Oui,
les CPD parlementaires, est-ce qu'ils ne sont pas des Camerounais?
On peut dire ça tout de même. Peut-être, voici le moment de profiter.
Tu ne peux pas dire non.
De profiter.
Il dit toujours oui. Même si c'est mauvais, il dit toujours oui.
Je ne suis pas...
Est-ce que c'est ce que vous êtes en train de dire?
Je ne suis pas politicien. Je ne suis pas politicien, mais il y a des exceptions. Il faut le reconnaître. Le président Cabral Libi, vous avez vu, pendant sa prise de parole à l'Assemblée nationale, il a fustigé un certain nombre de comportements, un certain nombre de malgérances de la part du gouvernement. Et je pense que chaque député devrait suivre cet exemple pour...
On parle ici d'un parti minoritaire à l'Assemblée nationale, donc en définitive, leur voix...
Not even up to 30 opposition MPs.
Oui, j'ai évoqué cette idée-là tout à l'heure. Si vous m'avez bien écouté, il y a l'obésité du parti au pouvoir à l'Assemblée nationale qui peut avoir un impact dans la prise de décision.
Are those MPs representing the people of CPD and government?
C'est donc ça la question épineuse. Eh bien, je pense que les députés devraient déjà se questionner avant d'aller à l'Assemblée nationale. Les députés devraient déjà utiliser de leur pouvoir qui leur a été confié par les populations afin d'assumer fondamentalement leur part de responsabilité. Et je tiens à rappeler que ces mesures qui ont été prises ne devraient pas l'être parce qu'il y a d'autres possibilités. On devrait, comme il a dit tout à l'heure, on devrait par exemple permettre aux PME de naître. Leur augmentation sur le terrain pourrait également faire gonfler l'assiette fiscale du gouvernement.
On a beaucoup de petites et moyennes entreprises au Cameroun créées par des jeunes Camerounais, mais qui ne fonctionnent pas simplement parce qu'ils ne parviennent pas même à gagner les simples marchés de 4-9.
Bon, c'est aussi ça la triste réalité. C'est sur l'occasion aussi.
Donc,
hein,
à quoi ça sert de créer une entreprise pour ne pas pouvoir réaliser des marchés et payer des taxes sans toutefois que l'entreprise ne fonctionne?
Mais écoutez, les entreprises d'abord doivent être convaincantes. J'ose croire qu'il y en a. Mais maintenant, on ne voit pas de la tension particulière. C'est vrai, sur les papiers, ça s'écrit. Sur les chaînes de télévision, ça se dit. Il y aura un accompagnement efficace et efficient pour les PME, les entrepreneurs. Mais sur le terrain, lorsque vous allez tendre le micro à quelqu'un, on vous dira tout autre chose. On va vous dire, nous sommes délaissés à nous-mêmes, on ne sait pas comment faire, il n'y a pas de subvention. Est-ce que dans cette condition, on peut évoluer?
Let us go
La
to
question
Evis.
reste en suspens.
Evis, are MPs really to blame when we all know that all bills, almost all the bills, come from the presidency and they are just there probably to clap through? Are they really to blame?
Mr. Lasha, let us be honest to ourselves. When you are voted an MP in a state, whether you come from whatever region, you become an MP of the state. And it is not because you belong to a particular party that if a bill comes from the state or from the government and that government is the ruling party to which you belong, then you must automatically say yes to it. I want to think that if truly our MPs represented the people, you can be able to stand up, and maybe use the word your boss. You can be able to stand up to your hierarchical superior and tell them that this law is not going to be good for my people because that village of Ngombenza where I come from, I see the lifestyle of the women, of the mothers in that community. They cannot cope. We have to raise the price of the stamp, for example, from 1,000 to 1,500. But when MPs simply sit and they all validate everything that comes from the government.
Now, Evis, what about the man? What about the man that is enacting those bills adopted by parliamentarians? What about him?
Forget about the person enacting. We know that for the past 40 years. I have often said it and I repeat it. We have a leader who to me does not have a vision for the country and does not have a dream for the people. That is why you can suffer from yesterday to tomorrow. It doesn't mean anything to him.
No.
Because at one point in
don't
time,
you think it's an overstatement? He has close collaborators. He has close collaborators. He has close collaborators that studied the files and then forward those files to him. Do you really think that the good files are forwarded to President Paul Biya? I'm talking about enacting those laws.
Mr. Lasha, when you have collaborators who study files and send to you for validation, at least you should also go through. I do not think that you just validate documents blindly because someone has gone through. And I keep insisting, who are the close collaborators we are talking about? They are the same people who have occupied offices for 40 years, for 30 years. And we know that Cameroonians have never been comfortable with the way their management has been ongoing for this number of decades. So what we are saying here is that it is a regime that does not care about the lives of the common man. That is the language I am speaking. It doesn't matter whether who is enacting the bills or the MPs or whatnot. It is a group of people who care about themselves and nothing else but themselves. That's what we are saying.
Elvis, est-ce que vous voulez nous faire croire sur ce plateau que les députés du RDPC sont ces personnes-là qui ne veulent que le mal pour les Camerounais?
Vous savez très bien comme moi, Gwladys, que quand on parle de l'Assemblée nationale au Cameroun, la majorité là-bas, c'est le RDPC. Ça veut dire donc quoi? Aucune partie d'opposition ne peut bloquer quoi que ce soit puisque le RDPC a la majorité. Donc si toutes les lois passent, ça veut dire que c'est le RDPC qui fait passer ces lois-là. Donc ma question que je pose toujours est la suivante. Est-ce que ces députés prennent même la peine d'étudier, et comme vous-même vous avez posé la question à mon co-panéliste au studio, est-ce qu'ils vivent même la réalité du pays pour pouvoir valider tous ces lois-là? Parce que nous avons comme impression que rien n'est jamais bloqué au niveau des assemblées chez nous, que ce soit l'Assemblée nationale ou bien au niveau du Sénat. Pourquoi? Parce que ça vient de l'État qui est contrôlé par le RDPC, et comme eux tous ils sont du RDPC, donc automatiquement tout ce qui vient du RDPC est positif et ça doit passer. Pourquoi? Parce que les gens ont peur peut-être de dire non et de perdre leur position ou bien leur place dans les échéances prochaines. Donc c'est un peu ça le problème que nous vivons dans notre pays. Ils le savent, je ne sais pas vraiment si ces gens-là savent ce que vivent le Camerounais lambda du jour au lendemain dans ce pays.
Okay. Our lines are open. Maybe for the next 10 minutes, you can call us and you tell us what you think about what we are discussing this morning. We are still talking about the hikes in the price of physical stamps in the country and other taxes that have been increased as per the finance law of 2023 in the country. Etape Kanten, you listen to Mbane Evis talked about those MPs. They are afraid to lose their job because most of them, they are coming from the CPDM majority.
Chacun protège sa mangeoire. Écoutez, c'est une triste réalité. Je suis écœuré.
Au détriment de la nation.
Je suis écœuré de faire un tel constat parce que au finish, c'est la nation qui perd, c'est la population qui souffre énormément. En ce moment, vous n'allez pas trouver une information concrète qui va vous dire la vie, elle est paisible au Cameroun, la vie, elle est vraiment chic. Tout est devenu cher. Allez au marché, vous verrez que le litre d'huile rouge qui coûtait un prix un peu abordable, aujourd'hui, ça coûte maximalement, c'est inquiétant, c'est inquiétant. Donc, et à ce niveau, il faut dire que les députés de la nation doivent faire le travail qui
sont-ils réellement des députés de la nation? Oui, ils sont des députés pour leur propre compte.
Les incombes. Bon, j'insiste encore sur ce fait, il y a l'obésité du RDPC à l'Assemblée nationale.
Mais ce sont toujours des députés, peu importe qu'ils soient du RDPC.
Comme il est en train de dire, chacun protège son poste. Là, c'est possible. Que chacun protège. On ne blague pas.
Donc, on veut comprendre qu'il n'y a aucun... Ces députés ne sont pas des patriotes.
C'est malheureux. C'est malheureux parce que c'est un constat qui est clair là.
Mais on aura des élections prochainement et les Camerounais vont encore voter ces mêmes personnes.
Alors,
pourquoi?
Maintenant, si vous voulez le changement, que les Camerounais aillent donc s'inscrire dans les listes, électorales pour élire leurs représentants, des vraies personnes qui pourront faire.
Mais ce sont toujours les Camerounais qui ont voté ces députés.
Non, mais écoutez, tant que ces Camerounais seront charmés par les paroles et ne savent pas ce qu'ils veulent concrètement.
Okay.
Ce sera, on appelle ça quoi? Un cercle vicieux de pauvreté qui va continuer au Cameroun.
Let's continue with Evis again. President Paul Biya, on the 31st of December, announced a vast construction of the socio-economic construction of the north, the extreme north of the region, a region that has been hit by war and insecurity. President Paul Biya, however, remembered a thought of for that part of the country that has been abandoned.
Abandoned by who, Mr. Lasha? And when you say he announced a vast construction, you know all of our president's announcements have always been vast. Vast at the point of announcement, but at the end of the day, there is never any concretization. Remember that we are talking today about reconstruction of the northern part of the country. But in the past 1 or 2 years, they were talking about the reconstruction of the northwest and the southwest regions. And we were expecting, of course, in his last end of year speech, that he should give us at least a balance sheet. How far?
No, but he did mention about Babaju Bamenda's stretch of route. He mentioned in his speech.
No. Babaju Bamenda's stretch of road is not northwest, southwest, Mr. Lasha. Let us be please. We should not mix up things. Babaju Bamenda is not northwest, southwest. The reconstruction we were talking about for north, or they were talking about for northwest, was not Babaju Bamenda. So when he came to the northwest, he simply said that it was fast advanced. Fast advance at what percentage? What has been done? The people who are there on the ground, can they concretely testify that this is what they have seen physically done on the ground to show that there is reconstruction? Today they are diverging up north to say there is a vast reconstruction. The truth is that Cameroon has always been under reconstruction as announced by the regime in place, but at the end of the day we do not see anything concrete on the ground that is being done. And of course, these announcements only give room for huge sums of money to be validated at the level of the National Assemblies. People get them, embezzle them, and at the end of the day, no one is called to book, no one is called to tell the people exactly what he or she did with whatever amount of money that he received. We are talking about corruption in the headlines like I got. We are still expecting, and we were expecting in his end of year speech that he should tell us, for instance, how far has he gone?
But he promised, Elvis, he promised hard time. Elvis, he promised hard time for embezzlers of state funds.
Can you, as a journalist, remind, and we should be able to say it the way it is?
Some people will tell you that running a country is not as easy as you think. Those of you who are of the opposition, you sit outside, but you don't know how running a country is difficult.
Mr. Lasha, nobody has said the contrary. Running human beings is not an easy thing. But the problem is, you should be able to surround yourself with fine brains. You should be able to surround yourself with a cream of persons who have ideas and who first and foremost are patriotic. I have said, you, Lasha, I'm sure by the time you started your primary education, there were names you got in this country as names of ministers and maybe speakers of certain houses, which who to today still occupy those ministries. But you know very well that the system in the country is that if you do not belong to a particular circle, no matter how knowledgeable you may be, no matter your wonderful ideas, no one takes your ideas into consideration. We have not said it is easy running a nation, but we are saying Mr. Biapol and his regime should be able to make management in such a way that whether you are of their circle or not, they should first of all consider the Cameroonianness in you and bring everybody around the table so that everybody proposes his or her own ideas. When people falter somewhere, we keep them aside, we call them to book while bringing onto the board new persons with new blood, with new ideas. But you cannot work with the same team of people who have failed for 40 years and you maintain the same team and you are justifying that running a nation is not possible or is difficult. I say no to that.
Elvis, desperate situations demand desperate measures. What are the desperate measures that Cameroon needs now for us to get out of some of the difficult situations that we are?
Given that Mr. Biapol and his government will not accept to put in place certain changes, like maybe the review of the constitution, of the electoral code and all whatnot, I still say one thing. Cameroonians should learn to get involved first. They should learn to get interested in the political lifestyle of their countries and not be shocked when poor decisions have been taken and they have no other choice than just to respect. People should get registered massively on the electoral list, and believe you me, at times even electoral fraud is because we have very few Cameroonians who get onto the list. If we could have 50 million Cameroonians registering for elections and going into vote, believe you me, it becomes very, very difficult and almost impossible for this regime to go and fraud. That is what we are saying. People should get involved, interested. People should learn to stand out and talk. Peaceful demonstrations in the streets are not a crime. Let's forget about the fact that the government uses intimidation. People should learn to march out there and tell the government in place that they are not comfortable with certain decisions, and at the end of the day, the regime will be forced to capitalize and recoil on taking certain decisions. But when you simply choose to keep quiet, claiming to be a neutral somebody, you cannot be neutral when it comes to the political life of your country. The truth is that once you do not get interested, the bad position will take bad decisions and you become a victim. So Cameroonians should get involved, they should get interested and make their voices heard. And I think things will change from there. I have said and I insist, storming even the streets to denounce certain things it is constitutional.
Storming is one thing.
Demonstrations are accepted in the country.
Elvis, storming is one thing, but maintaining public order is another thing. Are you sure if you storm the street, you'll be able to maintain public, order? Do you have the power to be able to?
Under normal circumstances, Mr. Lasha, you and I know that when people go out there for a peaceful demonstration, it is the place of the law enforcement officers to be there to canalize the people, to guide people as they move. But we know that the reverse in our context is real. When you move out there, no matter how peaceful you are, the law enforcement officers are the first to brutalize you. So the question is, who are those who cause the insecurity or who bring in disorder? The same law enforcement officers. So you cannot blame it on the common man.
Okay, Elvis, thank you for coming out, joining us this morning on the program. Hopefully we will be with you again next week. Elvis, thank you so much for your time.
Can I just add one last thing, Mr. Lasha?
Yes, go ahead.
Good. On the issue of the annual prices, electricity bills, yes. We should not fool Cameroonians by, like I saw somewhere, that the common man is not being taxed at the level of his house, because what they have just applied is an indirect tax system where companies will pay exorbitant sums to NEO, but will step up the prices of their products, and the final consumer, being the layman who hasn't got anything, will be the one to pay the final price. So it is not because the price or the bills at the level of private homes will not increase that we are not from the
Bomotonguina assisted me with a presentation. Hopefully, we will join you tomorrow for yet another edition of the program. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.